Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Greetings, beautiful people. My name is Simon Javan Okello. I am excited to be here with you for another amazing episode. I think this is episode 292 of the African Father in America podcast. As usual, we have an amazing African proverb that is all the way from South Africa, and we are going to talk a little more about it. If you're joining us on YouTube, thank you so much. I would love for you to subscribe to the channel, and if you are joining us on Clubhouse, thank you so much. I am going to bring on my guest today in a moment. I'm going to bring on my guest here in a moment. So bear with me as I situate myself here. Hey, Marsha, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Simon. How are you?
I'm good. We are live already. So
I see, no problem.
Yeah, I in your title I said Mambo Kazi Squad, because I like that hashtag,
No, I thank you.
Yeah.
For my the hashtag for my tribe.
Yeah. So we will talk about your tribe a little bit, because I think it's an important tribe. I just thank you for making the time for joining us today. For those who are meeting Marsha for the first time, Marsha is an incredible community leader here in Seattle, Washington, and also, in the motherland. We are going to talk a lot about, what this proverb from South Africa means to Marsha. We are going to talk about a childhood story that, continues to inspire Marsha as she's doing the work in the tech industry, building community, and being a mother to two beautiful children, and really being an inspiration to me. You really you inspire me the way you show up for a lot of the things that I do. I just want you to know you're one of my inspirations here in Seattle.
I love it when the inspire the inspirer.
That's true.
Too, so it's mutual.
That's true. Yeah, and then we are going to invite a few people who are going to join us on Clubhouse for today's conversation, just for them to engage, give us their own thoughts on the proverb, and a few comments to you. But I want to share 3 nuggets of wisdom that my team and I prepared for today's proverb. Again, if you are just joining us, the proverb we are discussing today is from South Africa. It says that do not call a dog with a whip in your hand. Do not call a dog with a whip in your hand. That's going to be our proverb. The 3 nuggets of wisdom we have today are as follows. Before I do that, I just want to welcome Mike and Oga, who have joined us on Clubhouse, and also to everyone who is on YouTube. I can't tell who you are, but if you comment, I'll be able to tell, and we can engage you in the conversation. Number 1 of the 3 nuggets of wisdom says that do not be too quick to anger. Take a step back and assess the situation before reacting. A lot of things these days are actually designed to make us react. So just being aware about that is really important. Number 2, do not try to do everything on your own. Ask for help when needed. This is something I think I struggle with sometimes. I want to do things to a certain standard, and before I feel like I have found someone who can also do things to that standard, I feel like I always want to do them myself. And lately I'm learning that unless I ask for help, I'm going to be stuck in the same place. And then number 3, be mindful of how you treat others. As you may never know what someone is dealing with behind closed doors. That's really important. I think you can assess that for yourself. A lot of the time you don't know what someone is going through until they tell you. So just being mindful about that is really important. So Marsha, I want to bring you on so that you can also share, first of all, the work that you've done in the community here is commendable. You're the pioneers of the Washington State Coalition of African Leaders. You are one of the leaders in the Zimbabwean community. You're connecting the African and African American communities. So I just want you to add anything that I might have missed in introducing you, and then share with us your thoughts on this proverb.
Thank you so much, Simon. Thanks for being here. And in terms of connecting people, again, you and I share that in common. And for me, I've been a resident of this Pacific Northwest area for about 30 years. So in arriving, here, I was a young student actually. Well, I'd been in Canada for a while, but being in this area where when you leave Africa, where you have a community, you have a home, you then have to create your own community as an immigrant, a new person in this new life. And I think I've always had the community building example set. My grandfather was like a community leader. He was a church leader, a church planter, in terms of just our home. His home was like a place where everybody would gather, come, if meals would be ready. I've heard you talk about your mom the same way. She sounds a lot like my grandfather. So, as we go through life and we move away from the homes we grew up in, we take some of those values with us, knowingly and unknowingly. So I think it's always been in my blood, because I'm a lot like my parents, and more importantly, my dad. He was just a people connector, loved people. And as I became a parent, and more importantly, a single mom, it became more important for that community building to have, because it takes a village to raise children. And as a person raising two kids by myself, I want them to stay connected and for people to stay connected. But it's all happened organically. So yes, the Washington Coalition of African Leaders came about, as well as just staying connected with other immigrants from other African countries. And it's work that I'm actually thinking in 2023, I'll be really expanding on that and building almost a think tank. There's an idea that me and a partner will have been talking about on how do we move this from just being communities connecting, but really having a think tank for African leadership and for African entrepreneurs, ways to connect and things like that. So that's what I'll be doing in the future. But I also work in the technical field, as you mentioned, by day. But all those elements connect to really just put me in places where I'm able to cross the community work that I do, and bring some of those experiences and skill sets into my career life as well. So it all just helps me become a better person. So I'm thankful. As you take a sip of your
I
coffee.
know. I've had this coffee for like 1 hour, and I finally thought about it. I've been setting up for this show, and
It's
sometimes
early,
you
I
just have
know.
to, yeah, you just have to, do what's most important. But this coffee is equally important.
No, this work you do is important, Simon. I think,
Yeah,
you and I have known each other for a long time.
I
And
know.
again, being able to connect people, whether it's through Proverbs, and, it
Yeah,
may seem like it's a small thing, but Proverbs connect us, and when I look at the proverb today about, not, do not call a dog with a whip in your hand, there's an equivalent one in Zimbabwe, which says you have to hide the whip, in order to hit the dog, because otherwise, if it sees the whip, it will run away. So, we can talk more about that. But all this work that you are doing, it's so important, and I commend you for these early mornings, or day in day out, and everything that you're doing with Vibe Africa. It's really one Vibe Africa. It's commendable.
thank you. I deeply appreciate that, Marsha. Yeah, it's work that takes conviction. If you're not convicted, you can't do it, because, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. But now, I love listening to you talk. I feel that you should have your own podcast. By the way, you should have. I know you're busy, but your voice is really, really critical, especially now. Now that we're having the African immigrant population outside of Africa. In the diaspora is growing really, really fast, and soon, our own children will literally be running companies here in the US. They'll be running organizations here in the US, and I feel that we are paving the way, just like our parents and our grandparents did, and I feel that you represent this a lot. And in the African Father in America podcast, I always ask guests this question: a childhood story that keeps you driven. I normally share this story of when I was 8 and I was given a bike to distribute milk and bread in my neighborhood by my mother. And I always wonder, for example, for you, where were you around that time, and what are some of the things that were going on around you that when you think about those moments here in Seattle, you feel like, okay, I'll not just go to my tech job and then stay within my own household, but there are certain events that must have happened that continue driving you to be who you are today in the community. So share with us a story. And also, before you do that, I just want to welcome Omni Shads. Is joining us from the UK, and I see that Dr. Latanya is here too, Latanya Stevens, and Lita, Brother Art. Thank you all. Melissa is here, and I also see Ram, Aji, and Lavender. Thank you all for being here. Take a second and share the link to the Clubhouse conversation. And if you are on YouTube, I see that we have quite a few people there. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to share with us in the comments, what is it about this conversation that is moving you where you are right now, or what is it about this proverb that is inspiring you? Share with us. Masha, I'll pass you the microphone.
Thank you so much. So in 1980, that is when I was about 7 years old, Zimbabwe had formerly been Rhodesia and run by the colonial, under the colonial rule of the British. And that was the transition year that it became Zimbabwe, and the independence became real. It became independent from the British. So it was an electric time. I was young, but I remember the hope and the excitement our parents had. There'd been so many restrictions on where families could live. And the white rule was just what was the reality of the Zimbabweans up until then. So there was just so much hope, and Bob Marley came to perform at the big Rufaro Stadium, which is the big stadium sort of in the ghetto area. And our parents were so excited, and there were impromptu celebrations in the streets and motorcades that, I remember just our parents just driving around, in honking horns, and it was very celebratory. So that time just shaped, a lot of us who were there in those around that time, in that time of transition. We really were left with the mindset that anything is possible. The world has opened up. We can live where we want. Our parents really showed us we could go to schools that we hadn't been allowed to go to before because of the political situation that was there. So that is the story that I think shapes who I am today. Just being in that time of transition and seeing from the time of colonial rule, and then now being able to, and my parents really endeavored to send me to one of the best schools in Africa. Really, I went to a girls' school, which is an elite school, and they really just wanted the best for us. Started, and my parents both worked hard, wanted the best for us kids. So it really shaped and drove, for me personally, to really aspire to just do the best in life and not take anything for granted, because those opportunities had not been there. They really jumped on them and made sure that they really created a life for us that was, a really good upbringing, if I do say so myself. So that's my childhood story. And yes, now the political situation in Zimbabwe is not so great, but the people continue to have that same resilience and the same fight, in them, to just wanting, let's just, how do we create a better life for ourselves, and stay driven. And that is the takeaway I keep with me, even in, when we're in the diaspora. I was just watching a documentary that a school friend of mine, somebody I went to high school with, she just won an award. There's a documentary called Transitions, and she talks about the billions of dollars that are being sent by the diaspora to Africa, and follow some of those stories. So I would really love for you to connect with her and talk about this documentary. But being out here in the diaspora, we have such a big role to play in financing, helping our families back home, and really being focused on how do you create a better life for ourselves and for our children. But now we also have all the responsibilities of people back home, looking to us to say, hey, you are out there, the expectations they have, and being able to do what we can for them as well. So
I agree 100%. I agree. I agree, and I can't imagine seeing what you saw. And I wonder if you were there when Bob Marley was actually in Zimbabwe. I have met a few people who are there, not in Zimbabwe. I'm telling you, Bob Marley coming to Africa was like Mansa Musa going to Mecca, because every country Bob Marley passed through, he actually left a lot of initiatives, a lot of inspired people. For example, the reggae scene in Kenya, which is probably the biggest outside of Jamaica, he helped actually personally buy the first sound system equipment for some of the DJs there that have gone out to continue building that industry in Kenya until now. I interviewed one of the people that he met when he was in Kenya, and he was on his way to Zimbabwe, and I was just really, really surprised that there's a lot of information that people have that unless you interview them, unless you talk to them, you won't know what really happened around those years, because not everything is in books, So for me, that's also another value of this African Father in America podcast. It allows me to have this kind of conversations and then connect with other people. For example, now I want to connect with your friend that you just talked about. We have to bring her on the show so that she can talk about the documentary that she has created. I'm really, really interested in the data, of how much exactly does the diaspora send back to Kenya, to Africa, and how can we also invest this in a more brilliant way as a collective, how can we build industries that are initiated by the diaspora, where we go back to the continent, not to send money individually to our families and friends, but we take a portion of that once we know what the total that we send is, and we invest it on something that we can say that, there's this company that was started in the diaspora that invests in infrastructure in Africa, in hospitals in Africa, something major, I think
the
it's
Indians
possible.
are doing. Yes, it's possible.
Yeah,
But the Indians are doing that, and
Yeah.
this movie is backed with research by Harvard University. So I'll be happy to connect you with Rumbi. But what you're saying, and when you talk of the legacy of Bob Marley, until today, he's remembered because of the things that he was doing to build for future generations and to really leave a legacy that outlived him. And I think that's something I keep thinking for myself too, is what is the legacy we leave for our children? What are the things that we do that outlive us? How do we make a difference in the lives of others with what we have? It doesn't always mean that we have each whatever little we have, each of us, but collectively, what can we do? So it really brings me to some thoughts I had on the proverb, because I feel like sometimes Africa has been dealt, these whips where, we've just been loyal puppies going through life, embracing, welcoming these colonizers, really not realizing, the whips that would follow and the harm that it could cause us. And so that is where, when I looked at the proverb, do not call a dog with a whip in your hand, I almost feel like sometimes Africa has been, almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Having these curveballs, and we're just going through life trusting, welcoming, and being a loyal, almost a dog, really going through being just being ourselves. And then the whips come out, from the colonizers, and we are suddenly taken off guard and taken advantage of. Because I feel like, like I said, there's an equivalent in Zimbabwe which says, a dog is hit. You cannot hit a dog unless you're hiding the whip. Because sometimes, you when you're a loyal, trusting person, and I can use this in my own personal life, because I've been in relationships and in situations, even professionally, where I'm so trusting, I'm going through life, and then there are these whips that are hidden that you don't see, and the harm that for others who are coming in, um, taking advantage, but you don't see it because you're just a loyal, trusting dog going through life, being, hey, um, just being a friendly, helpful dog, trying to be loyal to the master, and then the whips come out. So I hope I'm not overcomplicating it, but
No, you're
just
not.
what you said,
Yeah.
that was a concept that I thought about when I was looking at this proverb. Do
Yeah.
not, let me look it up again. Do not call a dog with a whip in your hand.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying 100%. And I also feel that when it comes to even community projects, for example, you have been to Kijiji Night that I have been producing at the Seattle Art Museum or Madaraka Festival. A lot of the time when you're doing public things like that, it's also risky to talk about it early, because it's like you've taken out the whip and you've seen the dog, and you're 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 celebrating before the party starts, and a lot of the time that is when people can sabotage what you're planning. If you have an idea and you share it out there, there are people that are also looking for ideas to just copy, so this proverb also speaks to that, but also it speaks to a lot of the things you have done in the community. And I want you to just speak about some of your work. When you look at what you've done with the with the Washington Coalition of African Leaders, recently you produced an amazing event for the Zimbabwean community. Currently you are involved with something at Garfield High School. You are always doing something. I don't even know what you're doing back in Africa, but when you look at what you've been doing over the last year, what is it that makes you really, really proud that you want to share with us in this moment?
Yes, so I'm actually on several boards that are doing very, very major work in Africa. So I'm in the organization Rotary International. And I've been in Rotary for a long time. So I'm on the board with the Seattle 4 Rotary Club, which is one of the biggest in the world. It's actually called Seattle 4 because it was the fourth Rotary Club that was set up over 100 years ago. And so well, maybe less than 100, but the concept of Rotary is that, professionals come together and they pool their resources to do projects, all over the world, um, and give back. And so I do a lot of work, and I'm on the board for Rotary, for the Seattle Rotary for this year, the governance board. But within the Rotary organization, there's an organization called Malaria Partners International, which is sort of a breakaway organization, which works with Rotarians all over the world to fight malaria. So we're doing amazing projects, mostly through small grants that we give to different, and obviously malaria is prevalent in southern, it's in the southern hemisphere of Africa. That's where you've got the most incidents of malaria. So that work, and we work in partnership with the Gates Foundation. But again, in doing that work, sometimes you feel ambivalent, because there's a lot that goes in, and you go behind the scenes, there's a lot of research, but sometimes it almost feels like right now Africa, there's a lot of need for skill sets to be increased, people to get more access to funding. But sometimes, as you are on the behind the scenes for some of these organizations, it almost seems like it doesn't move fast enough for the needs, unfortunately. And that's just the nature of how things are. But yeah, I get impatient, because I almost feel like, obviously more needs to be done. But the people that have the funds, that have the power, they're doing their best. But sometimes it almost feels like the whole system is just not fast enough for where we need to be. So hopefully there can be ways that we figure out, like I said, in how do we really empower the people. And those are things that Rotary and MPI is working to do better. How do we get the skill sets? How do you empower the local people to be able to find solutions to these issues? And that was the premise within which we created the Coalition of African Leaders. The Coalition of African Leaders in Washington was also starting to say how, for the issues that we run into as immigrants here in Washington State, we have all these different communities trying to figure things out. How do we work together, and using sort of our leaders, the people that are really the leaders and the trusted messengers in all these communities, coming together, finding solutions for these issues. And we are now in a place where there are resources available to be able to find some of those solutions, and people don't always know about those. So, for instance, the city of Seattle has some funding available for community building events, just for that very reason of realizing that, especially after COVID, communities and people were just scattered and really needing some strengthening and some coming together. So there was a fund there are funds beyond just within King County, within the city of Seattle. There are funds that these government entities set aside to be able to support. And so we took advantage of applying for some of those community building funds. And I applied on behalf of our Zimbabwe community. And I advised other communities that we collaborate with. And we were able to be granted some of those grants to really build community building events. And it's because the city realizes that they can't do these things by themselves. So now they give the funds to the communities to say, you are the ones who know each other, you're the ones who know your needs. Go ahead, and how do we strengthen your community? How do we support you? So that's been just a brilliant idea, and some of those programs are continuing. And I just love the concept that, and it's similar to what Rotary does. It's similar to what Malaria Partners is doing. They have these grants that they then give to the communities to say, hey, why don't you pay people to clean the streets in the slums so that we can be fighting malaria? What are the things that we can do? Why don't you have education about malaria in the markets in West Africa? So they give the money to the small communities to be able to fight and find solutions for those issues within the community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for all the amazing work that you do. I deeply appreciate it. I wanted to talk about Zimbabwean food, so maybe you'll tell me a little bit about that in a moment. I want to know about your favorite Zimbabwean food. I know somebody who lived in Zimbabwe for a while, and they're claiming that they make really good Zimbabwean food. So I want to hear what you love to eat, especially when you go back home. But I want to take a few minutes to welcome, our friends who are going to contribute their voices to today's conversation. I see that Lavender is here, and we'll start with you, Lavender. Just briefly share where you are, what today's proverb means to you, and if you have a brief comment to Marsha, feel free to also share. The proverb says that do not call a dog with a whip in your hand, and it's a South African proverb. So I would love for you to share with us in just a second what this proverb means to you. But for those who are with us on YouTube, I want to make sure you subscribe to the channel and also give this video a thumbs up. And if you are on Clubhouse, share the link to this conversation on Twitter and other platforms so that we can continue growing this beautiful community that we've been building over the last 2 years. Hey, Lavender, I'll pass you the microphone. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Simon. Hi, Marsha. It's amazing to hear your voice and learn from you. It like when I learn about some of the things you um, had to do or you've achieved, I get so inspired because um, the world is changing rapidly, and some of the things you've done sounds so huge and unachievable, but I'm a dreamer and a doer at the same time, so who knows? My thoughts about today's proverb, do not call a dog with a whip in your hand, is what comes to mind is that you attract or you get what you give in life. When we give positive energy, when we are always smiling, that's what we get in return. And when we um, give negativity or bad energy to other people, that's what we get in return. Thank you, Simon. I'll leave my sharing at that. Thank you again.
Fantastic. I agree. We'll go to Ram Aji quickly. Masha, take a few notes and just, remember some of the nuggets that are being shared here so that you can reflect once we go through all our friends who are with us right now on Clubhouse, on the Clubhouse stage. Ram, thank you again for joining us. I'll pass you the microphone.
Thank you, my brother. I am happy to be here. Always a pleasure. My name is Ram Haji from Uganda, and I'm a big fan of this specific session where we actually go through Proverbs. I am a firm believer of Proverbs not being what they actually seem on the surface. There's always deeper meaning, and in Uganda, in the region I come from, in Buganda, we have that saying in my local dialect. We say, amakuru amekusifu, hidden meaning in Proverbs. So oftentimes I try to also look for all sorts of angles because a statement like that could go many ways. So yeah, briefly, just to appreciate people who already shared in this space. Like Lavender said, it's very inspiring to listen to you, Melissa, and thank you all for stepping on the stage. Finally, a shout out to my friend Shads, who's also just joined us here. It's been a while, and I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you all. So specifically about the quote, rather the proverb, do not call a dog with a whip in your hand. In my perspective, it calls for winning in silence. It calls for being strategic. It calls for always putting the thought process into something and not just rushing into it, because the other way is an assured way of failing. I think Javan, you underscored the importance of putting out your intention and it being sabotaged, even if it's just from an energy perspective. If you put out your intent, make sure you're sharing it with people who are happy to see you achieve it. That's very important, because eventually it does affect either negatively or positively, whichever plans and intentions you have. And it's it's always in good faith that we use the same energy to uh, be supportive of other people's initiatives so that we actually counterbalance the negative eye. The negative eye is so strong that you literally, if somebody looked at you with a negative eye, it has the even the power of killing someone. Somebody can, as strong as they concentrate on it, they can literally look at you and you fall down head flat with nothing tripping you. So it's that serious. Anyways, I'd like to conclude by saying, move in silence, win in silence, and be strategic. Thank you so much.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you again for your contribution, my brother Ram Aji. Thank you for being here. I remember you being one of the very very first people for me to interact with on Clubhouse, and I'm just happy that you took the time to join us today. Hey Melissa, how are you doing today? I would love to hear your voice. Share with us your perspective on this proverb. And also if you have any comment to our guest, feel free to share, and also let us know where in the world you're joining us from. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Simon, I had back channeled you, but I'm sure you haven't had a chance to look. I wanted to get the name. I missed the name of the beautiful guest you have.
Marsha,
Marsha.
yeah.
Marsha, hi. Melissa here. I loved listening to you. My heart was just so happy. My best friend is from Zimbabwe. And when you mentioned think tank, I'm like, I said, Simon, I need to be connected to her immediately because I just launched the think tank. So I am the founder of a global think tank here in the United States of America. And I've been hard pressed to find another Black owned one. And so when I heard you say that's what you want to do in the future, I want to be at your service and make sure that that happens. In my company, we don't have a competitive mindset, so I just would love to see somebody else with me. And I do work. Actually, I have a satellite office in Lagos, Nigeria, so that's why Simon and I bond so much. Is because of our common love for Mother Africa and why I love this room. And so the proverb speaks to me specifically: do not call a dog with a whip in your hand, because it just screams to me being passive aggressive and um, being someone who is flexing your authority on people and shutting them down. And that's something that I need to make sure that as a leader, I just do not do. I make no room for that in my leadership style. And you're calling people. I think of every animal is valuable. All of us are valuable. We're created, and so we're supposed to be here. And so, when I call people into my life to, serve alongside me in my company or, be a customer or do an event or just even be here on Clubhouse and follow people, my mission is to be someone who is love, who is a person who adds to your life, not take away. And the idea of a whip, especially in my culture, African American culture, it can have a negative connotation. It conjures visions of what was done to our ancestors, how they were brutalized and terrorized with that tool. And so, may I not participate in or be a person who uses intimidation and terror to get people to agree with me or to work with me. May I use my influence, may I use my talents, my abilities, my intelligence to do so. And that's my contribution to this amazing topic. Thank you, Simon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Masha,
Oh,
go ahead.
wonderful.
Masha
Oh
wants
my
to say
goodness.
something.
I was dying. Oh wow. We will definitely connect when you talk of flexing authority and then shutting people down, and how much you love people and be someone who is loved. We just have so much in common, and our shared love for Africa. I think you talked about you and Simon having that, and that's what drives me. And when we're thinking about the future of Africa and having these think tanks, and definitely connecting and collaborating. So I'll be in contact So thank you for that. And for Ram talking about moving and winning in silence and being strategic. We are all, on this level of higher thinking, and I just love it. And with what Lavenda said about giving positive energy and you get positive back. Again, all these ideas and mindsets are just making my blood so warm, and
Hold
I'm
on.
so happy to be
we have
here.
we have a few other guests. Hold on. So so now you will reflect on the next comments. Brother Arth, just briefly, and then Dr. Latanya, and then Manon, Shads, and Sarah, and then lastly Stella. So we'll quickly come to you, Brother Arth. Thank you so much, Marshall.
Peace and love, family. This brother Herb, I'm coming from the North Carolina territory, and beautiful conversation as always, Simon. And just gratitude for you taking the time and shining the light on a lot of people that's doing different work, and just giving them an opportunity to share their story and help open up people's eyes to what's really going on in the world. And honors to the sister for all that she is doing and will continue to do. And as for the proverb, what I would say, do not call a dog with a whip in your hand. And it's two things that makes me think of. The first thing is it's an old saying where uh, you can attract more flies with sugar than vinegar. And and then also this made me think about or reflect back where I was in a relationship, I was in a situation, and there was some children involved. And the woman, she used to, the way she raised the children was with the whip or through fear. And the way that I interacted with the children was through love. She never could figure out why did the children take to me so much, or why did they always want to be around me, or why we were so close. Because I didn't have to rule them with fear. I ruled them with love, and that's what the proverb says to me. You know, you don't have to, like you said, use power, authority, and force to get the results you need. It's a way that you could do it in love, and I'll park my plane right there. Peace and love, brother Herb.
Peace and love to you, Brother Arth. Thank you for your contribution. Hey, Dr. Latanya, how are you doing? Share with us your perspectives as well.
Thank you, Mr. Simon. I it had me reflect because today is voting day, and there are a lot of people of influence and people with power. And if we vote for the wrong ones, we're in a lot of trouble. And so, right now, I'm paying attention to those who do have whips in their hands, that we not vote for them because they're going to cause harm. And so I'm looking at it from another angle and perspective because everybody else covered some of the other ones. But I'm looking on the reverse side, who to look out for and what to watch for those who have whips in their hand, ready and loaded to cause damage. And so that's my take on it for this morning.
That's fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much. Manon, how are you? Briefly share with us your own perspective on the proverb and share where you're joining us from. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you also for our guests and the people in the space who are just listening and listening with a wonderful contribution here regarding the proverb today, which is actually very interesting. Do not call a dog with a whip in your hands. Um, the way I think about it actually is I think about it in two ways. When I see the Africa leadership across the continent and the way they are leading our people, it doesn't show the leadership style that actually is more friendly or is more focused on problem solving for Africans and love the people that they are leading. And this is the one of the issue that we're facing in Africa in terms of leadership. We have a leadership that actually authoritarian that take a power for granted and expensive of suffering of the people that they claim to be represented or to lead in Africa across the continent, and that is the way that I see it. And the other way also, I look into our relationship with the Western world or so-called developed world. If you look into it, there is two advantage being taken on Africa in terms of resource, in terms of the sustainability and prosperity of Africa economically. There's much of advantage being taken in Africa, and Africa became a market, in order for those developed countries to survive in expense of our suffering in Africa, and that is also representing that we are not focusing on how to become more creative, an environment of creativity, an environment of building friendly, lovely, building the community that should not live in fear. But the more our community are living in fear, incompetency, because they feel weak, because there's no leader to give them the energy that they should be empowered, and they should have the energy that they can move the force that can develop Africa to become a land of attraction, a land of peace, a land of harmony, a land of prosperity and progress. And that's the way I can refer into this property, and it is very great, because the dog is friendly, but if you have a whip in your hand, you call the dog. Probably dog going to run away from you, from the fear, And if you want to be friendly with the dog, then you should not threaten him before even you call him to be a friend, So that's the way I see it, and I think it's a good private, and I see a lot of people contributing to it. Coming to us as a diaspora here, myself, I speak to myself. I'm interested to make a difference in my capacity in Africa in any way I can. And I think we in Africa, we need, in the diaspora community, we need to challenge ourselves. If the Jewish community globally make it to have a very great country in Middle East, within the Middle East, and the Jewish state was created on the diaspora community, organize themselves and develop this country and become even a developed country within the third world country. You can see how the powerful diaspora force, diaspora scale can do it. And I think we cannot do it when we keep ourselves continue to live in exile without returning back home with the skill that we learn, and how we can apply those skills, and how we can educate our people. And history is very clear. African independence, early 50s and 60s, was a result of diaspora educators who came in overseas, and then they went back and talking about independence of Africa. And that's where the emergence of African independence came about it. So I think in 21st century, Africa community, we have a huge population in diaspora. And I think the best way we can help Africa is to think about opposite returning back home, and apply the skill that we have. And I think we can make a difference within our continent. Thank you.
I agree. Shads, what do you think? What do you think of the proverb? And also briefly share with us where you are. Any comment to Marsha?
Sweet, sweet, sweet greetings, everyone. I'm sending you big, big, big virtual hugs and love in your time zones. Simon, it's always amazing to hear your voice. Marsha, we appreciate your wisdom, your voice. Honestly, you have literally woken up all my ancestors in me. I'm just so excited to just read more about Africa, and hearing your voice. It's been a blessing. Ram, it's always amazing to hear from you, and everyone has contributed so far. Absolutely amazing insights, and your wisdom is very appreciated. I am from the UK. I'm originally from Uganda, but I'm living in the UK right now, going through this financial crisis that we're all going through. But this proverb actually brought up a lot of what you've all shared already, about our governments and how they can entice us and to vote for them and tell us, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then when they're empowered, they're doing the whipping. But it also made me think of being a mother, or being an older sister in a sense, and positive reinforcement. So the proverb, let me just reread the proverb. Do not call a dog with a whip in your hand. So recently I've realized that all the aggression or aggression in my disciplining is not working with my nephew or my little brother. So positive reinforcement is what is actually getting them to respond more, and react in a way that is actually showing progress. So I feel like if I was to continue being, I don't know, just acting the way my parents used to act, it wouldn't really help them grow in the way they need to be in this generation, in this time. And I know a lot of us do that. We tend to think if we do the things the way our parents and our grandparents did it, that maybe they'll be okay. But no, it's time for a change. New generations, and positive reinforcement. That's what's been running through my mind the whole time. And I think that is what I'm going to say. I don't want to take up too much time. I really want to hear more from
Masha.
Marsha.
Yeah,
I'm so
Masha, we are
excited.
coming
Can
to
you
you.
hear our voice?
Hey, Shads, it's just beautiful to hear your voice, and I could talk for a long time about everything you shared. I'll hit you up actually. I would love to host you as a guest soon too. Hey Sarah, how are you? What are your perspective on the proverb? And thank you again for everything that you're doing to support us here with the Daily African Proverbs, Madaraka. The mic is yours.
Thanks, Simon. It might be a little noisy and just coming into work, but I first just wanted to start with some gratitude and just say thank you to everyone that's shared already. It's actually really inspiring. It's been a few months since I've been able to join. And so to kind of start my morning with hearing everyone's beautiful stories about what's going on globally, but also in your local communities. And then, of course, sorry, I also took the stairs. What's come to mind, for everybody in regards to this proverb, I do feel like a lot of what's already been said is kind of what came to my mind. And I think just to kind of hone in, for me specifically, it kind of just made me think and reflect on the role I play in society, and then just like the fluidity of that. So, sometimes I find myself, taking more of a leadership role, but sometimes I do feel like I am the dog as well. And I think understanding those roles is important, and also kind of along the lines of what Lavender shared, where do unto others as you would like to be done upon you, and just like leading with positivity is really important, because if I am the one that's going to be following, I do want to make sure that I'm also treated appropriately, and just reflecting in the times where I have had to follow. I do know that the leaders who are more stern and strict and kind of come out with their whips, I tend to kind of hide and just don't really want to be supportive or be very obedient. And so this has really helped me kind of reflect in that, and just really inspired me as well. And I think everything that I was really thinking hard about was mostly what Melissa said, and I appreciate everyone's words, and I just want to thank you. And I'm here in Seattle as well, and I am very supportive of all the African events going on here, but also globally, and really spent a lot of time in Malawi. So that's kind of my second home, and I just want to thank you all. Thanks for sharing, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Have a nice day. Thank you for stopping by and jumping on the mic, even though you just went up the stairs and you're suffering there. And lastly, Stella, share with us your perspective, and then Marsha, just reflect on what you'd like to, and also remember to share how we can stay connected with you and how we can support the incredible work that you're doing. Stella, how are you doing? Share with us your thoughts. Stella must be far away from her microphone, so I just want to make sure all of you who are listening on Clubhouse are aware that I'm really, really grateful for your time, your continued support. Really, it's just me saying this is probably not enough, but I just want you to know I am deeply, deeply grateful. And the same applies to everyone on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. If you're on Clubhouse, I would love for you to follow me if you're not following me yet. That's one of the ways that you can, join us. You can be notified that this room is live. I rarely come to Clubhouse these days. I primarily use Clubhouse for recording the African Father in America podcast. And so, if you want to connect with me, this is a really perfect way to do it. 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday to Friday. A shout out to Sambaza Podcast, who is also another big supporter of the show. Richmo and Doug and Robert, I see you. Everyone else in the room, thank you so much. Masha.
Thank you. I will echo the gratitude, Simon. You and your squad, your supporters. That's why I also talk of Mambokazi Squad, so people can follow me on Instagram at Mambokazi, because we, what we share is what we want to celebrate. I think Melissa talked about that, and with the themes that were for all the speakers, Brother Earth, Man and Shad, Sarah, everybody. There's a theme of just not doing leading through fear, but with love, and not using brutal tools. We've gone past that, especially we've learned that doesn't work. Us as the future, we need to now be focusing on solving problems with love, as Manan said, and empowering our communities, not to feel weak, but organize ourselves. And how do we build our strength with education and empowerment? So that's what we have to be aspiring towards. And so this work you're doing, Simon, helps with that. And if each of us continues to work collectively towards that goal. Greetings, Sarah. I might have seen you at the Malawi event. We have our own Zimbabwe Thanksgiving gathering, again, because of the funding from the city of Seattle, at Garfield Community Center at 5 p.m. on the 11th, November 11th, this Saturday. If any of you are available, Garfield Community Center in Seattle, please stop by. We'll just be giving gratitude. It's just a community building event to connect and be sharing love in gratitude. Thank you for this time.
Fantastic. What's your Instagram handle? I think we need to make sure people can follow you there. Just say it one more time.
Yes, Instagram is at Mambokadzi, Mambokadzi. I'm also on LinkedIn with my first and last name. People can find me Marsha Mutisi, Marsha, last name Mutisi. Thank you.
Wonderful. So if you want real feedback, if you want transparency, you should follow Marsha. She loves, she's a beautiful, wonderful sister, someone who will give you feedback and help you grow if that's what you really want. I think that's the biggest value I've had from you, where when I do something good in the community, you tell me this was good. When I do something that needs to be improved, you say that one you need to do some work on. So I can never forget those moments. And I thank you for taking the time this morning. It means a lot. I know it's just before we begin our day,
The pleasure is mine. Yeah, now I have to commute to work.
Yeah. Well, be safe. And to everyone else joining us today on Clubhouse, on YouTube, join us tomorrow again, same time, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. There's something incredible we are doing. My non-profit organization is called One Vibe Africa. We are present in Kenya and also here in Seattle, Washington. In Kenya, what we have is an education, music, and art program where we teach young people, music skills, music production, film production. And currently, we are partnering with another amazing organization called Mama Hope. And we are doing this campaign called Put Your money where your mouth is. So tomorrow we are hosting someone from Mama Hope on the show, and this is a young individual from Kenya who is doing amazing work. You know, we always love collaborating with young people because they teach us a lot. So if you want to learn about this campaign, put your mouth where your money, put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your mouth is. It's a campaign where we're actually going after some of these big foundations, big corporations who are always saying we are going to help Africa, and then they hire experts, they pay people a lot of money, they build big offices that African people can't even access. We are telling them, no, don't do that. Give the money to African people so that African people can solve their own problems. So if you want to be involved in that, if you want to learn more about what we're doing there, join us tomorrow. And, I'm also learning really about how Mama Hope has been doing this consistently. We are just coming on and being involved now. With that, thank you again and have a beautiful day and take great care of yourself. See you all tomorrow. Peace and love.
African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Jalvano Kello, live from Seattle,